The final step has arrived. Everything shifts now. This is not the beginning. This is not the middle. This is the turning point. You've waited long. You've prayed. You've planned. You've repeated the cycle of almost and not yet. But now the final step stands before you like a silent gate, and it will not open unless you walk toward it. There comes a moment when preparing becomes delaying, when learning more becomes hiding more, when one more excuse sounds exactly like fear in disguise. And now that moment is over. You are not here by accident. You are not reading these words by coincidence. This very hour is the one your future self begged for. Let's speak plainly. Every shift in your life, every mountain moved began with one trembling step forward. Not when you were confident, not when you were ready, but when you were willing. And now the step you're afraid to take is the only one that will carry you where you belong. The old habits will beg you to stay. The voice of doubt will whisper, just wait a little longer. But delay has a cost. Time does not pause for indecision, and purpose does not bloom in the soil of hesitation. This is not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about choosing progress when comfort would be easier. You will feel afraid. You will hear the old voices return. But hear this louder. You are stronger now than you've ever been, not because of how you feel, but because of what you've already survived. You've outgrown who you were. Now it's time to become who you were always meant to be. And yes, everything shifts now, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you decided to. This step is the difference between potential and reality, between wishing and walking, between almost and arrival. So stand tall, face the fear, breathe deep, and take the step. The final step has arrived. Now everything shifts because you did. You didn't come this far just to come this far. Every journey, whether noble or neglected, reaches a crossroads. Not the kind marked with signs and arrows, but the kind that rises quietly in your gut when silence grows heavy with choice. You know this moment. It wears a familiar face. It looks like a job you no longer belong to, a dream that won't go silent, a door that keeps appearing in your thoughts even though you've never dared to knock. You've walked miles. You've endured winters no one saw, smiled through seasons when your strength was survival, and now you've arrived at the edge of something greater. But this is where most people freeze, not because they're weak, but because the last step always costs the most. Not the first idea, not the halfway climb, but the step that shifts everything. That's the one that breaks you open and demands your full weight. It's easy to keep walking in circles, easier to keep collecting inspiration and calling it growth, easier to stay busy and call it progress. But deep down, you know there is a step that changes everything, and it's not behind you, it's now. The truth is, this final step is not a finish line. It is a threshold. It's where the version of you that copied others finally gives way to the one who creates. It's where your excuses lose their voice, and your calling begins to speak clearly. It's not comfortable, because transformation never is. Comfort is the language of the past, but this final step, it speaks the dialect of destiny. And here's the strange thing, you already know what the step is. It's the one you pretend not to see, the decision you keep putting off, the shift you call someday. Even though everything inside you whispers now, that step might be saying no finally to what drains you. It might be saying yes at last to what scares you. It might be making a call, turning down the wrong opportunity, or walking through the door you thought was too big for you. But the longer you wait, the louder the regret will become. And if you listen closely, not to the noise, but to the ache beneath it, you'll hear the truth rising. This is the moment I was made for, not because I feel ready, but because I can't go back to who I was. Every great story hinges on a moment like this, a step that looked ordinary, but rewrote everything, not because the world suddenly shifted, but because someone dared to step out of who they were and into who they could be. You don't need more time. You need more courage, and courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action taken in the presence of it. So don't wait for clarity to come before you move. Clarity often comes after obedience. The step reveals the path, not the other way around. The truth is, This final step isn't final at all. It's the beginning of something far larger than your fears. It's not the end of your strength, it's where it begins to multiply. This is where transformation is born, not in the easy, but in the necessary, not in theory, but in the lived decision to move anyway. So stand at the edge with open eyes. Feel the fear, acknowledge the risk, and then take the step, because this is not the end. This is the moment everything begins to shift. You took the step, or maybe you're still standing there looking at it, measuring it, convincing yourself there's still time. But here's the truth. Time does not pause because you are unsure. It will not bend itself around your indecision. It keeps moving even when you don't. And the longer you wait to move, the longer you postpone the becoming, not becoming rich, not becoming admired, but becoming true. Every second you hesitate to act is a second invested in a version of yourself you've already outgrown. You can't outrun the ache of purpose. It follows you. It shows up in the silence. It knocks in the early hours. It lingers behind the noise of routine. And no matter how many reasons you list why it's not the right time, why you need more money, why you're not like them, the truth remains unchanged. You are delaying someone only you were designed to become. We often say we're waiting for the right season. But what if the right season has been waiting for you? What if it was never about the calendar, but about the courage? People say don't rush, and it sounds wise. But what if your delay isn't peace, it's procrastination in disguise? What if the window is open, and you're still trying to repaint the frame? You can miss your moment while convincing yourself you're being careful. Here's the dangerous illusion. You think there's more time, you think you'll be braver later, wiser next month, more stable next year, but courage doesn't come by waiting. It comes by moving even when you're shaking. Time is not your enemy, but indecision might be, and here's where it gets personal. You weren't made to float in between. You were made to live decided, to stand for something, to walk towards something, to become someone. But you can't become if you won't begin. And you won't begin if you believe that waiting is safer than stepping. It isn't. Waiting might feel secure, but it quietly builds walls around your growth. Walls built of reasons, fears, justifications, until one day the wall becomes your world, and the dream becomes a memory of what might have been. You were not created for almost. You were not born to collect one day and build a life out of someday. Every delay adds weight to the dream. It doesn't make it easier, it makes it heavier, until even hope begins to feel exhausting. And that's the danger, not just missing the opportunity, but losing the energy to chase it because you waited too long. Time didn't betray you. It simply moved on while you stood still. But this doesn't have to be your ending, because every minute you've waited can still be redeemed by one act of now, one decision, one bold yes, one moment where you stop asking, "What if I'm not ready?" and start saying, "What if this is exactly the time I've been prepared for?" You're not late, you're just choosing, and choice is always louder than time. So stop measuring the step, stop interviewing your fears, stop analyzing the unknown like it owes you guarantees. The shift won't wait forever, and neither will your future. Take the action, not next month, not wait. It's comfortable now because you've delayed long enough. Delaying action doesn't delay time, it only delays becoming who you were meant to be. And the world needs that version of you, not tomorrow. So you've seen it now. You've felt the pressure of delay, the weight of inaction, the sting of postponing the person you're meant to become. And now, you know that time won't wait. You know that becoming can't begin without movement. But if you're still stuck, if you're still holding back, there's likely a reason. Fear, not the loud kind that screams run. The quiet kind that whispers, what if you fail? What if you're wrong? What if you're not enough? You don't need more motivation, you need more clarity, because fear grows in shadows. It multiplies in confusion. It survives where truth is unclear. And that's the war you're in now, not against time, but against fog, mental fog, emotional fog, spiritual fog. When your next step feels blurred, fear becomes the narrator. And if fear is allowed to speak unchallenged, it will sound convincing, even wise. But make no mistake, it is not wise to shrink. It is not noble to hide. It is not maturity to overanalyze yourself into stillness. It is fog, nothing more, and fog isn't permanent. It's waiting to be cleared. Clarity is not just knowing what to do. It's remembering why you started, why this path chose you, why your soul won't rest when you betray it. Fear thrives where clarity lacks, but clarity comes when you tell the truth about what you want, the truth about what scares you, the truth about what you're pretending not to hear. It's not that you don't know what to do. It's that doing it might cost you comfort, and we've all been taught to value peace over progress. But here's the real truth. Comfort is not peace, it's sedation. It numbs your longing, it quiets your calling, and it protects your fear from being exposed. But now is not the time to be comfortable. Now is the time to be clear. What are you called to build? What are you delaying out of fear of judgment? What truth are you avoiding because pretending feels safer than becoming? Clarity is painful at first because it strips away your reasons. It removes the mask. It leaves you face with what's real. But it's also liberating, because once you're clear, fear loses its teeth. When you name the lie, you take back the authority. And here's the lie fear always tells. You need more time to prepare. You're not like them. You should wait until everything makes sense. But clarity says, you are equipped not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. You've been trying to figure everything out before moving, but movement is what brings the clarity, not more sitting, not more waiting. The fog doesn't leave on its own. You walk through it with truth in your hands, and the more truth you hold, the more light you carry. Truth does not always make the path easy, but it always makes it visible, and sometimes that's all you need just to see again, to clear the noise, to reset your focus, to stop asking fear for permission to move. You don't need to fight fear directly. You just need to be honest about what this moment requires, honest about who you've been hiding, honest about the cost of waiting any longer, and in that honesty, clarity returns and fear retreats. So stop chasing more time, stop bowing to what-ifs, stop asking fear for directions. You were never meant to follow a fog, you were meant to walk in truth. And today, the truth is this: you are not unclear, you are just avoiding clarity because it demands change. But the fog has had its say, and now the truth has arrived. Fear thrives where clarity lacks, but truth clears the fog, and you've held the truth all along. So now the fog is clearing. Truth is standing where fear once whispered, and you're finally starting to see what's real. But clarity always creates tension, because when you see clearly, you can no longer pretend not to choose. And the moment you recognize the step, the moment truth calls you forward, something else begins to speak, comfort, that quiet, familiar voice that says, "It's not so bad here. You've survived this long just fine. Why risk it now?" It doesn't yell, it doesn't threaten, it seduces. It cradles you in what you've known and convinces you that risk is recklessness. But here's the truth comfort will never tell you. Comfort zones are not safe places, they're just familiar cages. They don't protect you, they prevent you. They don't guard your life, they guard your limits. And the longer you stay inside them, the more you start mistaking stillness for stability. You stop dreaming. You start adjusting. You shrink your desires to fit your surroundings instead of expanding your courage to match your calling. And eventually, you forget that the cage is even locked, because comfort doesn't come with alarms. It comes with routines, patterns, deadlines, bills paid just enough, dreams delayed just enough, pain avoided just enough. But just enough is not life. It is not purpose. It is not joy. It is the illusion of peace, and it will cost you more than risk ever could. Comfort will rob you quietly, not all at once, but piece by piece. It will take your edge, your fire, your voice, your why, and one day you'll look around the room you built out of survival and realize you never actually started to live. Because safety isn't found in comfort, safety is found in alignment, and there's nothing safe about living out of sync with who you are, nothing safe about avoiding the work you were born to do, Nothing safe about trading your fire for the applause of people who never knew your potential in first place. You weren't made to stay where it's easy. You weren't created to play the smaller role just because it guarantees fewer wounds. Even butterflies had to crawl before they flew, but they never stayed in the cocoon once their wings were ready. So why are you still sitting in a shell you've already outgrown? Why are you still calling this your ceiling when it was only ever supposed to be a floor? The comfort zone is clever. It looks like safety. It feels like peace, but it's neither. It's just fear with nice furniture. You'll never become who you are called to be by staying where it's easy to remain, and you already know that. That's why the comfort no longer feels comforting. That's why the silence doesn't bring rest. That's why the familiar now feels heavy instead of home, because something inside you has shifted. And when your spirit grows, the cage will always feel smaller. You can't shrink back into a space your calling has already expanded beyond. So stop clinging to the bars. Stop calling it waiting on God when you're just afraid to move. Stop labeling it wisdom when it's really just self-preservation in disguise. Wisdom doesn't keep you from walking, it tells you which direction to walk in. And right now, everything inside you is saying, it's time to go. It's time to break the walls. It's time to leave what once held you, but now holds you back. So don't stay in the cage because it's furnished with memories. Don't stay where your spirit no longer breathes freely. Comfort zones are cages. They do not keep you safe. They keep you the same, and you were not created to remain. You were created to become.